All right, everyone, we are live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course. There may be some baby noises in the background because my daughter is actually on the couch at the moment, playing around and stuff like that. It's the global day of Jihad, according to certain Hamas members. So, going out to any major events and stuff might not be wise. We'll be analyzing that. That's actually the main story of the day that we got to talk about. I am glad to be back live streaming. In Rutland, the speed of the internet is definitely not conducive to live streaming. I managed to do a one-off on Rumble. I think it was about a half an hour long or thereabouts. Here it's 50 to 100 times faster, actually, the upload speed. So here it's easy. There it's not so simplistic. We will be getting back into live streams, of course, next week as well. I will be doing, of course, the normal news. I've decided to make an extra exclusive video every day. So if you're not watching me, for those of you watching on Rumble, you're fine. For those of you watching on YouTube, you may want to subscribe to me on one of these other platforms. Links in the description: BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey. I've decided to stop uploading videos mainly to Minds because it's that's more of a social media style site, like basically like free speech Facebook. It's not as conducive to doing the video thing. So I'll be doing a lot of work. I've still got a lot of backing up to do now. I have two computers. I may be able to actually make that work with having as well on the side Odyssey live streaming. So stay tuned. I'm going to be looking into that and looking into a bunch of other things. There are a million things to do at the moment. It's going to be fun. We've got a lot to cover today, though. The Day of Jihad, of course, that's the main news story. Israel is commanding basically half of the Gaza Strip to evacuate into the other half right now. We'll be talking about that as well. It's going to be, the UN is warning about it, and for once the UN may not actually be wrong, that it's going to be a major, grave humanitarian crisis. No crap. Yeah, probably will be. We'll be talking about that. Scalise has dropped with regards to the House speakership, so in the absence of Steve Scalise, who couldn't get the votes, they didn't want to proceed. Basically, you're left with Jim Jordan at the moment, which is what a lot of people want, actually. Baga certainly prefers Jim Jordan. I did too, although I would point out Steve Scalise is the victim of far-left violence. He was shot in the hip and spent a while in the hospital, actually. Remember, with the congressional baseball game there. And so I don't think he's definitely not a friend of gun control. He ticks most of the boxes. Not all of them, but compared to Kevin McCarthy would be, in my opinion, at least acceptable. He doesn't have major TDS, just a latent minor case of it. That's already an improvement. So I was receptive to the idea. Like if he had gone through, I wouldn't think it was doomsday or something like that. And so we'll be talking about that. Also, AOC passing gas on an official uploaded video. Yes, this is, by the way, a link in the description. That is to her official account. Well, one of them. There's Rep AOC and then there's AOC. This is one of her official accounts run by staffers, and her video message with regards to human rights in Gaza, et cetera, punctuated at the 39-second mark by her passing gas. And people thought that was funny. It was shades of Eric Swalwell. We'll talk about the Young Turks and Jank. And then, of course, France and its ban on pro-Palestinian protests and movements. I've got a lot of super chats already, though. I see that a shit ton of people are already watching. Ryan Acorn, Spooky Day live stream. Couldn't have planned a better return day. Yeah, it's definitely, I'm glad that I flew in yesterday from JFK, from in New York, no less, as opposed to today, because otherwise I'd be like pooping my pants. Also, there were a bunch of Hasidic Jews on the flight because from New York, that's, a main hub. And I'm like, oh, if people start dancing, yeah, there might be some sweat involved there. Alan Smithy says first and follows up with, my wallet is blue balled from not super chatting. I'll gladly take your money. No problem there. Matt Jones, welcome back, Sticks. Glad you had a safe trip. Yes, thankfully. Although I had to wait a little while at the airport for the cab because there was a miscommunication about where actually I was supposed to be picked up. I assumed that it was the taxi area, but there are several at Schiphol Airport because it's huge. It's basically part shopping mall, by the way. The great Scalzini This past week has been a real mask-off moment for politics across the board, both warhawks and terror cheerleaders showing their true colors now. The problem is that a lot of people get really pro-fighting, pro-war, if their guy is involved. So they have like a football team mentality. Instead of just saying, hey, stop shooting each other and killing kids and weird stuff like that, they get into this weird mentality where it's acceptable, or at least marginally acceptable, as long as the kids being killed, the people being raped and so forth are on the so-called other side. And I just find that a little bit weird and inhuman. Ashley, sleeper cells and gamers are rising up. Yes, we may see some sleeper cell action today. I will be talking about that briefly. M, Trump should be temporary speaker, if for no other reason than just for the leftist meltdowns. I disagree, actually. I think he would make a poor Speaker of the House because he doesn't want to negotiate. He's pure executive. The bonus holes. Commander Biden for Speaker of the House. He should be given Pelosi's old office and paid in all the beef jerky and bacon he wants. Not joking. Bite back better. Yeah, he definitely bit a lot of people before finally being forced out of the White House. A dozen Secret Service agents that we know of, and then a bunch of other people as well. I'm just glad that no diplomat or their kid got bitten by Biden's crazy rabid dog. Cam2425IA said $100, by the way. Thank you very much over on Rumble for the return of the clank. There will be much clanking to come. No worries. I will segue back into the normal Monday through Friday live streaming schedule. I'm making additional videos now. I'm also plowing through literary work. I got another work upped earlier. It's ironically on Hasidic Judaism and and things attendant to that, some of the mystic traditions. I think that that'll be pertinent. It's very mimetic because I actually finished that work a couple of months ago. And now the illustrator came back online. She had some stuff going on with her family. And so the first work that I release is a few days after Israel declares war on Hamas, and it has to do with mystic Judaism. So I thought that was very funny. Contemporary Compendium, glad to see you back safely. Also, thank you for being so well read that you have absolutely no trouble pronouncing my name. Clank, thank you very much. Sumo Orange, the Uniparty wants a 9/11-like event so the war machine is fed. Funny, under Bush and Obama, terrorism was high. Then for break, back again with Joe. Fuck Joe Biden. Absolutely. Yeah, it was amazing. Trump was supposed to start World War III, but it never happened. Now you see a number of significant wars at the moment under Joe. It's amazing how that happened. Chad Scott, did you see J.K. Rowling and other libtards realizing that diversity really isn't our strength? She's been dragged through the ringer for years now. She's a third-wave progressive feminist. She's basically like a souped-up version of Elizabeth Warren, other than the whole living in a French castle thing. Apache, Morning Sticks, I expect a false flag today. Yeah, if something does happen today for World Jihad Day, we'll talk about that in a minute. It could be a false flag, or it could be an actual event. There's no way to tell most of the time, unfortunately. We'll get right into that news story now. By the way, I will say this. I noticed that people did like the MRE videos that I was making when I was in the US with the US MREs. I got 3 down here. I've got a British MRE, a Danish MRE, and a French MRE, and those are supposedly delicious. So I figure I'll have, some sporadic meals there, and over the next month or so, I'll be chowing down on those. I really want to get a German one as well, and probably another Russian MRE. That one wasn't bad. Had some good spread in it. Can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember making a video. It's definitely going to be military meal time. Anyway, we'll start off with today's news. The news you won't see covered by MSNBC. Day of Jihad sparks warnings for Americans to stay inside. Of course, I would like to be one of those that would say, screw it. I'm not going to be afraid of terrorism or anything. And of course, if you're in Rutland, the odds of a jihad attack are pretty low. There aren't a lot of major airliners going to the Rutland Regional Airport. I think there's 3 small craft a day from Boston, and that's basically it. So that wouldn't be the worry. But even if I were in like New York City or something, I probably wouldn't go outside more than once, maybe to the grocery store, and that's only to get food because I just don't like going out in public. So I can't do the bravado thing that some people are doing. Well, I'm not going to be told that I got to stay inside because of these friggin' terrorists, because I would stay inside anyway, just to be clear. This comes from the former leader of Hamas, Khalid Marshall. And the idea is that today, that is Friday, literally today, Friday the 13th, by the way, so take it or leave it, that they want people to rise up around the world for protests, maybe riots, picketing, whatever, and demonstrations, as well as potentially attacks on behalf of Gaza, especially. And we'll be talking about the fact that half of Gaza has been effectively commanded to empty as of today as well. You've got a major possible ground incursion into Gaza. It's likely to happen. Israel will probably roll hundreds of tanks into the region, bombing things ahead of it. And I expect at least thousands of civilians, unfortunately, as well to die. Meanwhile, Hamas is retaliating by saying everyone take up arms. But they already, here's the good news. Good and bad at this point are blurred with regards to this news. So I'm just going to use the colloquial. The good news is that Hamas already a couple of days ago called for people in the West Bank to rise up, and largely they didn't. So the hope is that you don't get a further inflammation of the situation. The bad news is that there are Hamas sleeper cells around the United States, certainly Canada, Europe, probably other part of East Asia, and so forth. They exist in Pakistan. They exist in India. All you need are 2 or 3 of these cells. You know, the total numbers would be in the tens of thousands, diaspora of other countries. All you need is 2 or 3 people, if not 2 or 3 groups, to go off and shoot up a mall or something like that. And you get a major terrorist attack, further inflaming the situation. And it's not unlikely to happen. My hope is that that's not the case. And being as incredulous as I can possibly be, that these sleeper cells don't exist, but they do. And so that's really become a problem. You've got open borders in Western Europe. You have open borders in the United States. They've already detained tens of thousands of people from places like Afghanistan, Somalia, Syria, etc., trying to come across just the U.S. border. You have millions of migrants. They're not intending to immigrate. They're just illegals in Europe. Some exist here in the Netherlands. There are people from various countries. You've got people from Turkey. You've got people from Syria again, Jordan, Lebanon, basically everywhere, Palestine, all over the place in these countries. And the problem is that not all of these people wish to assimilate and become part of the dominant local culture. Many do. That's perfectly fine. Many don't. And when they look at the news, you know, imagine you're a Syrian immigrant in the UK or something like that. You read the news, and then you find out that your home village has been bombed into ashes by the FSA, and that the great Satan United States is responsible for helping them do so. Does that necessarily make you very happy about the home country that you're now in, which is directly partnered with the United States? Probably not. And so the big worry, and I've expressed sympathy for people who genuinely have to migrate, because I don't think that should exist at all, because we shouldn't be bombing the villages. When it does happen, though, and those people are in the country, even if you assume that only 0.1% of these people become violent, 1 out of 1,000 people, but you've got a refugee population of 10,000, you've got enough people there to form a sleeper cell. The problem is that that's all across Western Europe. It's all across the Commonwealth states. It's in North America and the US and Canada specifically. It's in other nations too. And so it can become a big, big problem. I'm not expecting there to be like another 9/11 situation today on the global day of Jihad, according to the former leader of Hamas, who doesn't have direct power anyway. That's not what I'm expecting. Unfortunately, what I can expect is probably sporadic attacks in certain countries. Of course, we're getting on to the afternoon here. Things seem reasonably calm, and the hope is that there's no attack at all. But the fact that it could happen, that it's being encouraged to happen, that there's an impetus behind why it would happen is deeply troubling. This situation never should have existed to begin with. There should have been better intel. There should have been better leadership by the leader of the Western sphere, which is the United States. Currently, it's run by a vegetable as a puppet, being used by puppet masters who you don't even know the names of half the time. That's really the problem. We have no leadership in DC. Many other nations in Western Europe have no leadership. I mean, the Dutch government is too busy trying to confiscate people's farms to really look at this problem. You've got Eastern European nations that are going way off haywire into the other direction, saying we're not going to take any refugees at all, even if those people legitimately are asylum seekers and are no threat to us. We've had enough. You've got what I predicted many years ago, which is a schism in Europe. You've got social alienation and the uprising of populism in the United States, which was predictable. I don't see that as a negative, but I mean, policy-wise, it's a thing. You've got all of these various problems, and then you've got the former leader of Hamas calling for mass protests, which inevitably are going to cause violence, calling for a global jihad. And when you say that, Western converts to Islam aren't going to interpret that the same way as somebody who maybe is more Orthodox Islamic. You may insinuate that it's just about protesting and it's an ideological struggle. It's not a physical one. But there are plenty of people in the West who have been radicalized and see it differently and say jihad is throwing a grenade through the window. And so, unfortunately, there could be such a dust-up. The hope is nothing happens. The hope is there's not a single attack on that day. But all you need is one attack, even a limited one, and all hell breaks loose. People get paranoid. There'll be more war propaganda. It'll be the same bullshit that we're dealing with now, only it will be an order of magnitude greater. So my hope is that people don't follow up on this particular threat and don't misinterpret that doctrine for their own purposes, even though I would note BLM and a bunch of Harvard students are on board with Hamas at the moment. The Harvard students backed off really quick when they were blacklisted now, weren't they? Oh, I want a job. I want to be able to express myself but still work. You fuck around and find out. As far as that goes, it's more like cancel culture has finally bit you in the ass like all of us predicted it would after you utilized it towards content creators like myself for the better part of a half a decade. Asperger's syndrome. Wife and I went to see Rob Zombie's House of 1,000 Corpses for its 20th anniversary re-release. Great Halloween film. Can't remember if I saw that one. Rob Zombie's films are pretty good, though. Sparky, welcome back, fearless leader. Was afraid you were canceled. Finding ourselves rudderless, us clankers were about to saddle up with our recurve bows and run amok, invading random innocent countries. Simple Logic 90. Hey, Sticks, I am asking for a prayer for my cousin who lives in northern Israel. Well, I don't pray, but yeah, if somebody else wants to pray for your cousin, that's fine. I'll just keep it in remembrance myself. Don't believe in the invocation side of magic so much myself. No offense. But Paul, what a weekend. Jihad and Ring of Fire Eclipse going to be in Arizona for that. Wish me luck. Can't wait to see it staying away from large groups. Yeah, apparently there's going to be a pretty nice eclipse fairly soon, too. Ozzy's Robots, welcome back, Sticks. Ironically, I waited years, but a few months ago I booked a 2024 fall trip to Egypt, Israel, Jordan, and Amman. Guessing a refund now. Well, I mean, if it's, after the day of jihad, Egypt is still relatively safe. I might cancel the Israeli leg of that myself. The bonus holes. Stick, since you like metal, you should check out our friends, the band Repent's new album, The Reckoning. Just came out last week. The song Tombstone is particularly awesome. Sounds good. Sparky, Palestinian side highlights Israel's abuse of Palestinians, and Israel's side are beating war drums. But what they both miss is Hamas is supported by the U.S., which launders their support through Qatar. Yes, also true. Adonis Adams. As a Castlevania nerd, I urge all clankers not to watch the Netflix show Castlevania Nocturne. The previous show didn't respect the source material. It's heavily subversive, woke, and the creators of Knock attacked the fans. Not surprising. Wokeness ruins everything. Spider Eternal. Welcome back. Orange Man is bringing us to World War III. Wait, who's in charge again? Oh, yes, the adults. See how quickly Ukraine was thrown into the dustbin? It was funny how quickly they tossed them aside. Blinken coming out the other day and saying, we're near the end of our rope with regards to this Ukraine aid stuff. Yeah, we'd rather send it a little bit further south now, wouldn't we? JD, I think we should meme Biden into Gaza. Only Bidenomics can solve their 50% unemployment. Palestine needs to have a moment like Trump gave North Korea. He'll get both Palestines clean water. Doubt RJ6. Yeah. Suck duck. 2 generations of U.S. men not good enough that we need to throw a third on the ashes of the second? F that. Stay out. Miku Huntu 4X bot. Not sure if you're back in the U.S. Get on Timcast. I had preliminarily tried to do so, but I got bogged down with work. I had too much to do for the short time that I was there, and so I wasn't able to get on Timcast. That would have required me flying in, so I couldn't get on Timcast. In the future, don't worry. We got a bunch of super chats over on Rumble, too. My God. Never get to the news stories. Orange Troll 65 for the soothing baby cooing. Lol. Yeah, she's having fun, I think, with her chalkboard over there with her mom. Deprecated. Yay, I can finally coerce you to read my messages again. As long as you pay me, of course. King of Biltong, another $100. Thank you, Anton. Good morning from Anton's in Roanoke, Texas. Free shipping for your biltong using code STICKS on landofbiltong.com. You spelled it wrong, my dude. And antonsusa.com. Welcome back. Nice to get some live news updates first thing in the AM. By the way, I do endorse officially Anton's biltong. It was delicious. I ate all of it, minus the couple of bags that I gave to a couple of family members. Like my half brother, he wanted one, and I gave a couple to my sister. Other than that, I chowed down on the whole thing. It was delicious. You wouldn't imagine how delicious it was. I will personally vouch for the bison because I'm a big fan of eating bison meat because it's the best meat. And the Japanese Wagyu was spectacular, absolutely and then the pork too. I liked the pork one. I think that was my third favorite. Those are the three best ones, but all of it was good. Oh my God. I think I gained a little bit of muscle. I was working out, 5-6 hours a day in the garden. I'm sitting there. My breakfast is eating a handful of Angus beef or something like that. Oh God, it was good. Amish Zaku, thanks for streaming on Rumble. I joined years ago for your exclusive videos. Now I stream Fallout and other games on Rumble myself, and it's amazing to see the website grow. Yeah, it's pretty great, actually. Aussie's Robots, Biden, $100 billion to rebuild Gaza in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, that's probably what they'll do. It's another money grift. Castigator, now that Israel got attacked, they are on top of the progressive stack, so currently wins the Victim Olympics for the mainstream. Yeah, unless it's Rashida Tlaib's opinion. Jack O'Neill, as you speak about this day of jihad, a customer at my work comes in clapping about Hamas and shouting, "The real kings are back!" Sweating.gif. I'd be a little bit afraid. Yeah. Sparky, Blinken thought Hamas would have limited success, but enough to slow down BRICS, but they got farther than he imagined. He went to see Bibi to try and limit his retribution and may need to come clean. Yeah, clearly the Biden admin wants a forever war. I analyzed that in a New Tech exclusive this morning. When Blinken comes out and says, be careful about your response to this, we're unequivocally for you, we'll back you as much as we can, but be cautious. What does that sound like? Please don't wipe out Hamas. Please leave a remnant of them so that you have something to bitch about 5 years from now, and we have the ability to give you more money that will be skimming off the top. The great Scalzini, I was so lost without a live stream, I had to resort to super chatting your aviator reflection in Phoenix. God effing peace out. Yes, razor fist. Felon leftist. What leftist commentator do you respect the most? None of them. Because leftists don't deserve to be respected. Their views are already dumber than a box of rocks. Wasted Bonehead, good morning from the grave. Welcome back, ya clanker. Oh, we got a zombie in the house again. Some homeless dog missed out on AOC Fartgate. What happened? We haven't talked about that yet. I had to go through super chats. Next news story, speaking of news, Israel warns civilians in northern Gaza to evacuate from area within 24 hours. This was earlier today. For your safety, yes, half of the population of the Gaza Strip right now is being told to flee to the other end of the Gaza Strip, which logistically, number one, is impossible. It's too many people for the kind of infrastructure that you have. Number two, it begs the question, is Israel going to send 1,000 tanks into northern Gaza and just lay absolute waste to the place, like bombs and fire bombs and white phosphorus and other things that are sporadically used, tanks and A-10s and helicopters and all this stuff? It looks like that might actually be what happens. They might decide to flatten half of the Gaza Strip. Then afterwards, once they're done with that, they can say, okay, now everyone flee north. We're flattening the southern side. They've got the toys to do it. It's not like Israel is low on firepower like the United States is right now. Have you seen their stockpiles? Do you know how many planes and tanks and APCs and mortars and everything else under the sun that Israel has? Effectively, it looks like they're going to make an example and they're going to pound the Gaza Strip with everything that they have as a warning to other people, basically, leave us alone. The problem isn't doing that. If you just destroy a bunch of buildings, I mean, someone's home is gone, but maybe nobody's dead, like they've evacuated. It's an improvement. I mean, it's better than slaughtering a bunch of people. The problem is that a lot of these people, number one, will refuse to leave. Number two, held by Hamas when they entrench, will not be able to leave. And number three, are incapable of leaving even if they want to, because you've just got such a short time span and such limited infrastructure for them to do so. The problem is that if Israel therefore marches into the territory and it starts laying waste to it, you'll probably see tens of thousands of people killed. And so obviously that's not something that the average person would support. Even if they're like, Israel number one, fuck Hamas. Okay. Yeah, little kids probably aren't Hamas members. You can say Hamas is ISIS, so maybe there are a handful of 4-year-olds that they brainwashed or something, but most of the people that are dead would be civilians or human shields or something. And so it's not exactly clear how they're even going to evacuate that entire area. And then we have to wait to see what Israel does. They'll probably be like shock and awe or something like that. They'll be targeting even twice as many places as they've already done. I would point out that they've already bombed out thousands and thousands of locations in the Gaza Strip. So the infrastructure there is, and that's the other problem, the infrastructure there is already damaged. You know, you just need one fairly large bomb to hit the road instead of the building next to the road, and that road becomes far less passable. Maybe a Jeep can get over it. Maybe it can't. Maybe a person can walk through it. Maybe it takes them twice as long, and you got this stream of over 1 million people headed south. It could become a logistic nightmare. The UN, in one of the few statements that they've made in modern history that actually makes sense, was warning Israel, look, if you do this, this is going to become a major humanitarian crisis. There's no way for this to be accomplished, especially under the circumstances. There's no water, there's no electricity, there's no food left, there's no shipments at all. You're huddling these people up against the Sinai, and Egypt says they're not allowed to enter. If you destroy northern Gaza, which appears to be possibly what they intend to do, you've got a million homeless people. You've got 1 million people who are out of home, and it could become a major problem. So we're going to wait and see. I mean, basically, we've got a duality here. We've got the day of the death of half of the Gaza Strip on one hand, and we've got the day of Jihad on the other. If Israel begins its actions, it could definitely inflame people to terrorist attacks in other parts of the world as well. Let's see. Freedom of speech. Welcome back from the land of illegal immigrants. Come to Chicago. Closing parks for housing. Shaker Silver. It's telling that the Abraham Accord talks stopped after the attack. Yes. I think it's just what Hamas and likely Iran wants, to send Sunni Israel normalization, to end Sunni Israel normalization. That and the fact that you no longer have a person in the White House capable of governing. They understand the weakness of Joe Biden. Redane Scorza, watch Beavis and Butthead do the universe. It's good. I think I've seen that, actually. John Ski, the U.S. Army and Marines have started airing ads with white men again. That means we are putting boots on the ground somewhere. Yes, the U.S. Marines deployment has been sent to the region, and we've got 2 carrier groups as well over there. Night Ranger, thanks for the years of insight on the news. Keep clanking on, Sticks. I will never stop clanking. The Patriot Cairo, damn it, Sticks. I was saving so much money, biatch. Chad Scott, anyone else emotionally fatigued by the war machine? I have been since the invasion of Iraq, so yeah, it's been a while. We had a few glorious years under Trump where no new wars started. I thought it was great. I can't wait to see those days return again. I really hope he's reelected. Donna K, mornings have not been the same lately. I'm glad to have you back. Yeah, this is the morning live stream schedule. Moby Hornet, I personally think that Hamas is getting what it wants by being a martyr for Islam as they get blown up by Israel. The hope is to bring in more Muslim nations to attack. Well, there have been incursions from the northern border in Lebanon, so we'll see what happens. Again, this could inflame into a regional war very easily. Matthew Hammond, why does Israel not use 21st century strategy to undermine Qatar by busing people in the Gaza Strip to them? I don't think that Qatar would be receptive. I think they'd turn them back at the border because they actually have border control. Sparky, Egypt, no friend to Hamas or associated Muslim Brotherhood, warned Bibi. He took no action, thinking Hamas actions would distract from his troubles, not appreciating the ultimate scope and depth. Yes, part of this has to do with court intrigue in the Israeli government, it appears. Ramon C. GTC, do you think Israel will attack others? Possibly, but not certain. Mr. Pockets, good morning from New Hampshire. I'm going to see Suicidal Tendencies in Worcester, Massachusetts tonight. What do you think the chances of me being jihaded are? Stay strapped to get clapped, y'all. Very low, but because there is a chance at all, I mean, if it were me, I would probably not go, honestly. Mark Guidetti, have you been to Gaza? I have in 92. It would take less than 8 hours for the population of the northern half to move to the south. Yeah, assuming the infrastructure weren't bombed out. That's the problem. The Swamp Cleaner, I believe the fart heard in the video is actually the man on the video call going, He's agreeing with what AOC is saying at that moment. That's not what I heard. I'll let people decide that for themselves. Paul, is it me or is it stupid to care about two groups of people that hate us? I say we sit this one out, but with the far left and neocons, unlikely. That's how I think. I don't really care what happens in Israel or in Palestine myself. But I mean, in the front end sense, but it does impact me. I mean, your tax money will go towards aiding one side or the other. It has larger ramifications as far as terrorist attacks and so forth. So next news story. This one's not about foreign policy. Steve Scalise is now out of the consideration for House leader, which means that right now the only person I think openly in consideration with any legs behind him is Jim Jordan. Scalise, of course, you'll remember was endorsed by Donald Trump. I don't think that was a bad idea. He looked at it and he said, okay, acceptable individual. And I do think that he is. I don't have a huge stick up my ass about Scalise simply because he refuses to endorse Trump early and often or anything like that. He got shot by a left-wing terrorist at a baseball game. I think he's acutely aware of the problems of the far left, its violence, which is frequent, the violence of anti-gunners and people who are screwed up by legacy media. I don't have a problem with Scalise, although I would prefer Jordan as speaker. Here's the thing, though. I'm looking at the list of people that have been talked about for House Speaker other than Jim Jordan at this point. And I'm not seeing a whole lot of people that stand out as being talented. Scalise was their A game. Now the neocons have to go to the B game. I don't think that they'll be able to make it work. I think that with Scalise dropping out, Jim Jordan becomes probably the heir apparent. They'll try to block him. The Dems won't vote for him, but they won't vote for literally any Republican speaker. So don't count on them to pull what they did with Matt Gaetz and the MAGA, the Freedom Caucus before. I think that Scalise would have been okay. Jordan would be better, and I'm hoping that he gets in as House Speaker. I think his adversarial kind of attitude towards the leftoids would be good, not a bad thing. That being said, I think when we look through the situation, I think you'll have a House Speaker. It will be a Republican. It's just a matter of how much time at this point. In the meantime, you have an interim speaker, so most things can continue to go on unimpeded. The real problem becomes debt talks and budgeting. When that comes up for a vote and it's not entirely clear what's going to happen, that'll be a little bit different. But Jim Jordan right now is the likely next House Speaker. Not a bad idea. John Diamond, welcome back to your continental home. Clank on. Oh, and null hypothesis. Those countries that have large Muslim populations are realizing what a big mistake they made taking them in. Yes, a number of countries have actually rejected Palestinians as far as refugee movements. Therefore, they're more likely to go to Europe for some reason, which makes no sense. Ozzy's Robots. How can tens of millions of migrants relocate all over the West, yet 2 million in Gaza are locked out of moving? Where are the NGOs and human traffickers? Yeah, well, Egypt only has a small border with Palestine, and so it's easily guarded. When you're Egypt and you have fairly beefy military, not necessarily the most well-trained and organized in the world, but definitely relatively large with a lot of firepower, guarding that little border is peanuts. So they guard it well. Next news story. AOC farted during an official release here. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The United States' responsibility is to human rights. This means supporting the safety of the Israeli people and preventing the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Some people were saying that she was actually she was right with regards to her statement. I would say generally, although there's really nothing that the United States can do to influence the situation to any great degree, what are we supposed to do? Are we going to have boots on the ground in Gaza Strip? Are we going to occupy the West Bank? Are we going to have, the National Guard go and occupy Jerusalem? There's not a whole lot that we can do. So on that token, any such suggestion, in my opinion, falls through. What was funny is that 39 seconds into this video, she clearly farts. And it is actually her passing gas. It's not someone saying, It's not her moving her chair. She passed gas. And the only comparison that we have is Eric Swalwell. Of course, he's a very gassy man who fucks Chinese spies. AOC is not known to have done the latter, but I guess she got at Abuela's chorizo tacos earlier, and she had a little bit of a problem the other day. So people are finding that very, very funny. It's not really newsworthy, so to speak, but I wanted to throw it in there because if I'm having to talk half the stream about genocide and decapitated babies and bombings and white phosphorus and stuff, which is not a pleasant topic, I'd like to lighten it up a little bit at least. So we'll have one at AOC's expense. Yes, she officially, and this is her official channel. This is not a parody. This is the actual channel. Watch the video and go to second 39. She quite clearly was being gassy here. So again, hard-hitting news from Styx Hexenhammer. Sometimes you got to deviate from the major news stories just to save your own sanity. Robert Von Darth. Urban combat is what must happen, but defense has a 100-to-1 advantage. It's a kill box for Israel. Unfortunately, it has to be prepared and softened. The optics work against them. True. Felon leftist. AOC needs a wardrobe malfunction already. Yeah, some people are still thirsty for her, and I will never friggin' understand that in any way, shape, or form. She's basically like Bernie Sanders. Won't stop prattling on about the same handful of issues and then makes TikTok videos of her getting loaded, mixing tequila like she was still a bartender or something like that. And it's you're trying to be a teenager. You're about my age, or I think a couple years older, I think. It's like, stop trying so hard. You're not going to become a TikTok star. I'm sorry about that. Fictitious Dave Savage. The fart sounded too crispy and clear given her mic. Not to me. I think that it was actually passing gas in her case. Apache. Brat Bros, we've won. Ozzy's Robots. Fun fact, when I insure commercial property, I'm offered optional terrorism insurance. Don't think it covers an AOC gas attack. Sparky. Brian Berletic of the New Atlas points out, Hamas doesn't care about Palestinians, or else they'd try to stop Israeli bulldozers as they destroy individual Palestinian houses. Instead, they do October 7th. Oh, I know that Hamas doesn't care about them. Just like any other government or pseudo-government group in the world tends not to care about the people that pay them the extortion money. Alan Smithy, imagine the smell. I'd rather not. Wasted Bonehead. Oh, God. AOC simps got gassed. They were probably huffing that shit en masse. Yeah, it's a real big problem. And also, Styx, why are people obsessed with Israel and Palestine causing World War III? I don't see any other nuclear power getting involved, other than possibly the U.S., of course. It's because of biblical prophecy, people's misinterpretation of dispensationalism, mainly. They don't know their own religion, and so they imagine that if the temple gets rebuilt, the Antichrist comes back. They're waiting for Jesus. They would like people to suffer under Dajjal or whatever. Next news story. The Young Turks host Cenk Uygur launches Democratic primary bid against Biden. Just glossing this over briefly. Cenk is not eligible to be the president of the United States, having been born in Turkey. He's not a naturalized or natural-born citizen. He cannot be the president of the United States. He was not born to a U.S. parent that would have granted him that naturalization. That's number one. So the entire idea is bullshit. He's doing this for attention. And number two, I think that the reason why Cenk is trying to get attention, because clearly he'll get maybe 10 votes or something. Like I could probably jump into the Republican primary and get more votes than Cenk will in the Dem primary, because the Young Turks was a thing 10 years ago. Since then, they've just petered off and nobody really cares. It's sort of like Vice News. Vice News during Ferguson or something like that, it was like, oh, okay, this is pretty entertaining. Vice News now is like, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. The 20 viewers, I'm sure, care. And that would be probably an over-exaggeration of the number. Cenk doesn't really have a platform. His entire proposal here, which is for attention-seeking purposes to try to draw new blood to his so-called progressive, aka socialistic news site, really is, I'm not Biden. Well, basically, I hate to tell Cenk something here, and this would piss him off if a bunch of people were to tell him, so you should take to Twitter and remind him of this profusely anytime he posts. That basically makes you the left-wing version of Chris Christie. Well, that's not necessarily the greatest place to be. And number two, the body mass index is roughly similar. So I find that very, very funny. He was born in Istanbul. He's not capable of becoming president. So the idea that he's taking it seriously is bullshit. Now, he knows that he's not going to get the primary votes. He knows that even if he did, he can't physically be elected and hold office in that sense because he's incapable of it. But his basic premise is Biden is too old and nobody likes him and he'll lose. Let me jump in. You are literally the Chris Christie of the Democratic Party. How does that make you feel, my man? What's Chris Christie best known for? 14% or thereabouts approval when he left office. The incapability of ever holding any office again unless he grifts his way into a cabinet position, which with Trump as the likely nominee, whether he wins or loses, ain't going to happen. And that's Cenk. That's his career. Imagine you were kind of riding high back in the College Humor era and people were watching you because you're like this new, shiny new network and stuff. And you branched out into the internet really early, like some other missing link media, like a Salon or something. And now nobody cares. Your Twitter engagement's a joke. Your site engagement's a joke. You've been falling down the list now for a half a decade. And that's basically Cenk. Well, if you put away enough money from those huge contracts you were getting when times were good, you could just say, screw it and say, okay, somebody else can host this friggin' show. I got 20 million in the bank. I'm going to my McMansion. I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing a fishing show. That's what he should have done. He should have planned ahead. But a lot of people, when they taste success, they don't start planning ahead and saving money or anything like that. They expect the good times just keep mounting and mounting. And when they realize that that's not the way that it works, they get sad like Cenk has. The gal faces. We sell Perk 30 at Poop Creek, Oregon. Interesting. Robert Merez. His parents had dual citizenship when he was born. I don't know that that specifically matters in his particular case. Also, you know, he'd be lucky to get 0.1% in the primaries. So it's an obstacle to Biden in the sense that he takes a few votes from him. But is it really important? No, not other than being lolcow material. Fictitious Dave Savage. Does American Born extend to the vice president? I don't believe so, although it would set up a constitutional crisis if they were to ascend to the presidency. Sparky, I heard that Scalise dropped out of the running for speaker. Did he not? Yes, he did. He's no longer in the running, which means that Jim Jordan is now number one. Some homeless dog. It wasn't a fart, it was a queef. That would be even more disgusting somehow. Mahalo 321. Looks like Israel has come up with a final solution. I get the reference. Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's what they're aiming for in the next 24 hours. We'll see how much butchery there is. Swamp Donkey. Have you seen some of the crazy stuff Ben Shapiro has been saying? Did you also see the AI image he uploaded and claimed it was a person? My question is, why doesn't Ben just go live over there? Yeah, Ben Shapiro is definitely on the warmongering pro-IDF side. And but I mean, that's predictable. He's been like that for a number of years. There are still people who think that he's a reliable source of information. I get a good chuckle out of that. Wasted Bonehead Sticks, why didn't you appear on Timcast? Because I wasn't there in the United States long enough, honestly. For the first week, my computer was on the fritz. And so I didn't have enough time after that was solved with all the other work that I had to do. I just didn't have time to travel all the way down there to the Mid-Atlantic. I will go on Timcast someday. But it was not those days. And the final news story. France bans all pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Now, here's where I deviate from France on this. If you're saying that we're not going to allow people to parade through the streets with guns shouting Allah Akbar and saying praise Hamas and, you know, saying unsavory things about Israel or something, under European law, generally, you can make a pitch for that. I personally, as an American, think that people should be allowed to parade through the streets with guns, shouting whatever they want, unless they're making a credible current threat to somebody else or a structure or something. But under Euro-style old world law, you can at least make the legal pitch. Saying, though, that you can't have a demonstration in favor of Palestine. So, it is Hamas talking points technically, but you're saying, well, no, this isn't about Hamas. It's about, I want the Palestinian people to be free. I disagree. I think it's unhelpful, number one. I think it's directly contravening the concept of liberty, the concept of free speech and free expression, because not all those people are in favor of Hamas. They may think, well, I don't like Hamas. I fucking hate Hamas. But I also understand that the Gazans are in an open-air prison, or whatever opinion they happen to have. There may be nuance there. France is now banning them from having any form of demonstration at all. And they're not limiting it to, hey, you can't have the pro-Palestine demonstration in front of the synagogue or in front of the Israeli embassy. They're saying that we're going to fire tear gas at you no matter where you demonstrate. The problem is, let's say that 3 teenagers, they have a Palestinian flag, college kids or something. It's popular among, the know-nothings of left-wing colleges, by the way, Hamas is. And but they don't support Hamas. They're just saying, they support Palestine, and they're looking at images and footage, which is, profuse online right now, of them being bombed by the IDF. And they say, we want the bombings to stop. And so they go out on the street in front of their row house or whatever, with the Palestinian flag, and they're telling passerby, look at what Israel's doing here. Here's the video clip of, people being blown apart by the IDF bombing them. You're telling me that the French police have the time in between all of the actual terror attacks that are there in France and all the other crimes that are caused by their open border policy, and Macron is an authoritarian, so basically there's a bunch of thuggery in the country. All the dysfunction there, you have the time to take half a dozen kids that are simply waving a Palestinian flag and fire, beanbags at them. I don't know. I don't think that will work well. I think that that'll backfire, number one. It's definitely anti-liberty, number two. I mean, supposedly your national motto was liberté, égalité, fraternité. So liberty, equality, and brotherhood, basically. Fraternizing, I'm sure that they've made that gender neutral by now because of wokeness. And yet you're going to the so-called protest, which could literally be nothing more than some kids holding the Palestinian flag on a university campus, and you're going to fire tear gas at them. I oppose that. I don't think it's helpful. Even if you sided solidly with Israel and you said the IDF is perfectly justified, Israel is perfect, Palestine is bullshit, even then, in a third-party nation, to prevent any form of meaningful protest with regards to the issue, I just think it's beyond the pale. Yes, there are going to be people that go out and take advantage of that fact, and they're going to say and do crazy things, like they're going to be saying, like death to Israel or something like that. But insofar as there is no present threat of any kind or anything like that, I just don't understand why you would ban that form of protest. It doesn't really honestly make sense at all. By the way, did my stream go down in Rumble or something like that? Oh, no. No, I still see 2,300 people watching. Anyway, in a minute here, I will go offline because I've got to make cottage pie or shepherd's pie. I'm not sure technically which one it is. It's got, burger on the bottom, which is a pork and beef mix, and it's great. Liz prefers the beef and porks mix over just regular ground beef. It's got the added advantage of being cheaper, so I'm very happy about that. So you put some fenugreek in and a few other herbs, and you cook that. Then you layer over peas and carrots. I use them from a jar because it's actually much more conducive to this particular recipe because they're pre-cooked. And then you put some nice extra buttery, extra creamy mashed potatoes on top. Oh, it's going to be good. And then tomorrow we're having a chicken roulade and squash and stuff like that. I've gotten definitely into comfy food because I look outside and there's no sun. It's been raining on and off. It looks like autumn / early winter. So, yeah. Jake Martin, happy to have you back. Sticks, my mornings were a struggle without your clanky voice of reason in my ear. Be well, my friend. Stay thirsty, my friend. Thank you very much. Also, keep in mind, there will be an extra 4th video every day that is uploaded. Yes, I've decided to make 2 instead of 1 exclusives every day because I can be more uncensored in them, number 1. It's lucrative, number 2. And number 3, I've decided to drop the number of topics in the live streams to like 5 or 6 instead of 7 or 8, because oftentimes I get bogged down with so many super chats. I don't have time to really go in more detail for the actual stories. And what I was thinking of is because people are paying me to contribute and I'm doing bants with them, I'd rather drop the number of stories. That way, like the stuff that's less important, I'll be inclined to drop out of the live streams, and maybe I cover it, maybe I don't. And so it just sort of makes more sense, if that makes sense. Wasted Bonehead, no more super chats. Yes, absolutely. Because you better believe when I make cottage pie or anything akin to it, I load it down with ketchup too. It's going to be a good friggin' night. I thank you all for showing up here. Nearly 5,000 people at peak, by the way. Thank you very much for the various super chats. I will not live stream on Saturday or Sunday. I don't do the weekends. I'll start live streaming again on Monday. Tomorrow it's market day. I've got to get a kip roulade, and you can't do that at the Jumbo. You have to go to the Albert Heijn to do so. So we're going to have a little bit of an outing. I don't know, maybe see the park or wander around or something for a while. Get rained on. Then we come back and it's comfy food. It works for everyone. That's the way to live life. But yeah, no live streams on the weekends. I will be back on Monday. But again, if you're not following me on BitChute, Rumble, or Odyssey, so you're watching currently on YouTube, keep in mind, again, there's a pinned comment there and a links in the description. You should follow me on at least one of those sites so that you're up to date on all of your clanking. Otherwise, you're literally only getting 50% of it. And 50% of a clank, that's just not enough for some people. That's about all. Peace out.